Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We're coming off major political upsets in yet another election night, notably in New York, where all three of the congressional candidates endorsed by New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani won their primaries, unseating two incumbent Democratic members. I'm going to be speaking with Mayor Mamdani coming up later in the show. But Tuesday after Tuesday this year, we are seeing just extraordinary voter energy on the Democratic side. And certainly not Democratic incumbents alone who are worried. The incumbent in chief sees exactly how all this is going right now. Remember in 2024, or 2023 even, it was always clear that Donald Trump was running primarily for one reason: to stay out of prison. On the trail, the guy was already totally checked out on any actual policy, even on some of the biggest issues of the day, like, for instance, housing affordability.
How are you going to make the economy not just the the food and electricity, but bring down the rent prices, the housing prices, so that these kids can survive without their parents' help?
Such a good question, Mr. President.
You're right. I hear it very well. And I tell you, first of all, I love the people that you're with. I know that I must have at least 99, perhaps 100% of all of them. And I think they're incredible. We are going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to bring down the cost of energy. Energy is what caused the worst inflation, I think, in the history of our country. Food prices are up 50%, sometimes more. You look at bacon. Bacon is quadrupled. You can't order bacon. You can't order anything.
You caught that, right? The guy asked a really good question about housing, not just food and energy. How are you going to bring down housing prices? And Donald Trump talked about drilling and bringing down food prices. And you know what? That message worked. Voters believed him. He stayed out of prison and he became the president. Of course, he did not end up making anything cheaper. He said he was going to bring down prices on day one, but everything's gotten more expensive. Energy prices, of course, are way up because of his war with Iran. And he hasn't done a thing about housing, even though there is real support across the aisle to tackle the issue. I mean, not just people in elected office, but from Elizabeth Warren to Ezra Klein to Josh Hawley to Tucker Carlson, there is a growing belief that we have to make it easier to build more housing. And Congress, weirdly enough, decided to actually do something about it. Over the last few years, they spent a lot of time grinding out in the background a big bipartisan piece of legislation which became the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It just passed the House and the Senate by huge bipartisan margins, like 80% of the vote. In fact, if you watch the program, we had Senator Elizabeth Warren, who co-sponsored the bill on this show on Monday to discuss it when it passed the Senate. And even though Trump basically had nothing to do with it, and in fact, him having nothing to do with it was a big part of its success, the White House, when it passed, took a huge victory lap. So, for example, yesterday evening, this is the White House press secretary posting, quote, "Tomorrow, 12 p.m. on Capitol Hill, President Trump will sign into law one of the most significant pieces of housing affordability legislation in American history. Tomorrow's historic bill signing is another promise made, promise kept." So, today was the big day. I mean, keep in mind, they haven't passed a lot of legislation this year. They passed like $70 billion to shovel the ice and CBP. That's it. They've got to try to run on something in the fall. So today's the big day. Republicans are ready to hold their signing ceremony with Trump, where they get to say, we've passed a big bill on housing affordability, and then Trump canceled the whole thing out of nowhere. You see, they'd set up the whole little stage setup and everything. Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost of Florida did his own little mock signing in place of Trump before aides took the whole thing apart, the presidential seal and all. Now, you may be asking, that's kind of weird. Why would Trump punt on what is, by all accounts, a very popular bill, a bill you could go and sell to the American people? And the answer is really, in large part, the main answer is that he just doesn't care. He couldn't care less. It would be impossible for the man to care less about whether your housing is expensive. In fact, don't take my word for it, he told the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, as much weeks ago, quote, "No one gives a bleep about housing." No, the no one there being, I don't give a bleep about housing. People really do care about housing because Trump only cares about two things right now. He cares about building a bunch of stuff like his ballroom and his arch and the reflecting pool, and he cares about becoming a dictator and rigging the elections in order to become a dictator. His stated reason for punting on the ceremony today was he wants his voter suppression bill passed first.
It's voter ID, It's proof of citizenship, and it's also the mail-in ballots. We want mail-in ballots for the military if they're away. We want them for people that are ill or people that are in some form handicapped or have a hard time or people even that are on vacation. I'm open to that. But mail-in ballots, you have to vote because we have a lot of rigged elections. I said I'm not signing the housing bill. I want to see what happens. We said, look, the housing bill is housing. I made billions of dollars with housing. I know housing better than anybody, maybe anywhere. It's all about the interest rate. Lower the interest rates, you can have all the housing you want. But you have to understand, I don't want to hurt people that own houses too.
Okay, there's a lot in there. I mean, the first is that he just cares about rigging the election and sabotaging free and fair elections, right? That's what he cares about. And he's not bluffing here. This isn't just talk. You get a lot of talk from Trump. There's a lot of action behind it. So today, the Postmaster General, Trump's Postmaster General, said Trump is serious about restricting the delivery of mail-in ballots unless states hand their voting rolls over to his administration so that, the purpose of it, the Trump administration under Trump creates its own veto list of who can and can't vote. I think folks are understandably pretty wary of giving that info to the guy who, let's remember, already tried to steal one election. Now, you might be thinking it's been 6 years since Trump tried to steal an election, 6 years since he called up a state official and basically ordered them to do him a favor and nose around the election results. Remember the Georgia call? Well, no, that's not so. Trump already claims he directly interfered in the vote count in California's gubernatorial race last month. We did not learn about it through leaked audio in the Washington Post. No, Trump himself is bragging about it.
I called up the U.S. attorney in California. They said, we're going to have a number in the next week. Next week. I called up the very powerful, very good U.S. attorney in California, and I said, do me a favor. Take a look. They're trying to steal that election, too. I guess they called up. So over the next week, he was definitely going to lose, but the U.S. attorney called. We want to check your votes. About an hour after the call, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hilton has won. So had I not made that call, Steve Hilton would right now be watching the election from home. So I don't know, he would have a great chance, but the election's totally rigged. California's totally rigged. All mail-in ballots. It's a disgrace.
That's all nonsense. It's either lies or dementia or some combination of the two. You never know. Self-delusion. There is no evidence Trump actually altered the results, despite his implication. Maybe he's just lying. Maybe he never even called the U.S. attorney at all. He's definitely lying about the election being rigged in California. But the fact he would make those comments publicly, boast about it, means he does not even care if you know that he would, and this is really important, he would rather cheat than win. Think about what he did today, right? The midterms are coming up. Donald Trump's a pretty good politician, as he has shown, much to my chagrin. A president who's concerned about persuading persuadable voters would make a big to-do about signing a bipartisan housing bill, the only piece of legislation that you signed that could really plausibly be said to address the affordability crisis, the cost of living crisis that got you elected in the first place. But he chose not to do that because he doesn't want to win. He wants to cheat. He doesn't actually care what the voters think because he wants to suppress the vote and control the electorate.